All right, welcome back to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer, and today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Paradis. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
You too, man. I feel like I feel this way with a lot of our reps with Universe. I feel like I'm so close to everybody because of LinkedIn, because of being socially active on social media and sharing tips
Yeah.
and private messages. And I just wanted to thank you because you're one of those reps that I feel like wants to help everybody. And the reason I say that is because when I reached out to you originally, I think I sent you a private message and we just were talking back and forth ever
Right.
since then. So yeah, dude. I mean, I've been super excited to talk to you. Now you're based in Canada, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Right.
Kingston, Ontario. I'm in a twig. I'm like you. So we got a main branch that's like a hour and a half away. And then I started like almost 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago
Yeah.
with that Kingston. So very tiny little branch. We had a route and a half.
Mhm.
So been rocking out here, just building it.
Yeah. I mean that it gets so funny you mention that because I had no idea that you're at a twig, which is awesome to talk to you about that because like I transferred up from Sacramento, California to little Chubbuck, Idaho in East Idaho. So
Yeah.
I'm literally myself the only rep that's in that territory, which for me, coming from a team of
Okay.
6 reps and a sales manager and a branch manager and like 10 or 12 routes, I mean, the place was bustling every single day. It was
Whoa.
very, very easy
Okay. So
to,
that's big.
yeah,
That's a big site in our world anyway.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was really easy to stay motivated, but I think coming out to see a twig, what it did for me anyway, and I wonder if you had the same experience when you walked in, you saw how small it was. Did it give you this sensation of saying, "I'm going to make this place grow. I'm going to own this place"?
It definitely did, and I remember like we had 1.5 route at the time, so we had one route that was like ridiculously huge, and then we had one of our awesome route reps. He wasn't commissionable yet, so in our world, right, the larger your route gets when you're driving truck or when you're a route rep, the more commission you make. So it was my mission really early on to get him up and working because he wasn't really working 5 full days a week, and just so we could have stay part of our team, have good quality of life. Like that was really important to me, and just get a footprint in terms of market share because we were
Yeah.
so outgunned at that point. It's evening up now, but it was daunting. You got to drive by my competitors' yards and be like 20 trucks. Like
Yeah.
that's tough. That's tough to look at. But for sure, yeah, I agree with you. I remember looking at, we had like one little piece of a retail strip, and we got 3 now. So we're almost quadruple the space. So it's pretty sweet. I'm happy with the growth. A lot's been due to service, doing what they do, which is just keeping people happy and re-signing good business. A little bit of a national account imprint too,
Hmm.
but a lot's been me, Jay, and then there's a little overlap in my territory in Ottawa that I don't cover. So we got some growth there too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like I always had really good relationships with my RSRs. Shout out
Yeah.
to Tony Scholler, my man, who was just one of the best RSRs I've ever worked for. He's now the service manager out there in Sacramento. But coming up here,
Nice.
c- like coming up here, we just had one RSR. And I mean, it was a very small route. Now we have an RSR, we have a jumper, so the route's growing. But what that did for me was it made the relationship between myself and the RSR so much stronger because I would share my goals with him and he would share his goals with me. And we still do that back and forth. There's probably not a day that goes by that he doesn't text me in the morning going, "Hey man, I have a lead. Um, it's this company on this street. If you talk to these guys, like you've probably seen on my LinkedIn page, like I go cold calling with him all the time as long as he's
Really?
oh yeah, that
That's
that
awesome.
honestly is a blast because I mean, as you undoubtedly know, making cold calls, although it's fun to go hit 20 doors every single day.
Mhm.
And I say that with the utmost sarcasm. It's so much more fun to have somebody with you
Oh
that is
yeah.
actually the service guy, because there's been so many times where I've had people go, well, what makes you different from my vendor? And I go,
Or
well,
who do you service around here? Like,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
give,
it's hard. But
yeah.
what's super powerful about it is when the service guy's there with you, I just go, ask him. And he just goes, we service these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys, these guys, these
So
guys
do you
love
guys
us.
like literally like tag team like a cold call together? Like,
Yeah.
hey, you know,
Yeah.
me and like you guys go in as a set type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Okay.
as long as he doesn't have anything else going on, because I mean he's pretty crucial. So we have a full-time RSR, and then we have this guy,
Yeah.
Chris, who's considered a jumper, right? He's kind of in
Okay.
management training as well. But the cool thing
Right.
about him is he'll send me a text and he'll go, hey man, what are you doing tomorrow? Because I think Taylor's got this. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be up in Idaho Falls. And he'll drive from Chubbuck to Idaho Falls, which is like 45 minutes, just to
Okay.
jump in the car with me at 7:30, and we'll rock and roll
Oh,
till like
nice.
5:30 p.m. So it's pretty awesome. He's amazing.
That's oh, that's unique. I've never heard of that, but I like it. But it makes sense for your setup, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I got leads from my root reps, you know, and now we're three. Then we have a spare truck. We have a supervisor underneath our service manager, so we're getting close to being a full branch now. So
That's
it's
awesome.
nice. And they're all like phenomenal guys. Like it's a tough gig, man. Like it's I remember, so everybody has a different training regiment in terms of once you get hired to when you hit basically your first day solo on the road. For me, I mean, I had to do I think 2 weeks on the trucks or a week and a half or something like that. I remember thinking like, this
Oh,
is a tough, this is a tough gig. Like,
yeah.
not anybody can just do this. You know, it's physically demanding. You know, you're up like really early, like sometimes 4 a.m. to basically, you know, service all these large plants that are only open at a certain time, so you can get in there before it gets too crazy to basically, you know, get your job done.
Yeah.
And here, I don't know about the climate there, but we get snow, we get ice. Well, we
Hmm.
used to. We'll see. we'll see this winter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough gig. And these guys go out there every day and you know bang it out. And I'm like, I have to get these guys as much business as possible. You know, like
Hmm.
make their life and their job here as profitable as possible. You know, they got families, homes, and you know, if you're going to be out doing that, you know, I think it's only fair that I do my best to make sure that you're fed. You know, you're happy, you're content. You know what I mean?
100%. That, I mean, what you're saying is you're speaking my language, because working with other reps over the course of the past 5 years combined that I've been with UniFirst, there's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people that have that mentality like you have. And I think honestly, a lot of it comes from not just your own like personality and your own moral compass, but I think a large part of it is because you know what a twig is like. You know what it's like to start a branch from ground up. And that's something that a lot of people, I feel like in UniFirst, they don't have any idea of what that's like. Like I know I didn't. Like, I mean,
It's insane. Like when
yeah,
you're trying to
it
get
is.
market share, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, who do you service?" Like
Hmm.
2 cities over, there's a business similar to yours that I think we service. You know what I mean? Now
Yeah.
it's nice. You know, I got a book of business, people that I keep in touch with. You know, and make sure that luckily our service does. You know, they do a phenomenal job of keeping people happy. So
Yeah.
I'm able to use them as references, which is really really powerful. But when you're starting out, you know, year one, it's tough, you know, because people want to know, like, okay, if I'm gonna move my service agreement from my current vendor to you, how do I like? I mean, how do I know? How do I know that you're gonna take care of me? Because
Right.
you're not gonna be the one servicing me. Like, are you? No, you're not, right? Like, no, you have a root rep and a guy driving a truck and a wash plant and a service manager and a whole team that's is going to support all this. Like, who else is using you?
Hmm.
And when you don't have a really good reference, that's a challenge. Or they're so far away, they're like it loses its gravity, right?
Yeah.
It's not as effective when they're like 3 hours away. Oh, call this guy, and like it's 5 cities away.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold the same weight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, that's one of the reasons I work so closely with RSRs, no matter what. I mean, if I was in a branch in Sacramento, I worked very closely with my reps out there, or routeman out there, Daniel, Radio, that's his nickname, Radio. He actually went to President's Club as an RSR, which, by the way, for those of you guys listening that don't know how hard that is to do,
it's very hard,
almost impossible. Like, I mean, like, what is it? The parameters is you just have to not lose a single customer in a year, right? But
yeah,
then
you
you're
have to
also
have, I think,
subject to national accounts too, right? Because if you lose a national account nationwide, comes off your route, I mean, there's not really a lot of control over that.
that's the tough one, because somebody in an office in Florida can sit down and figure out, well, I've gone through this spreadsheet, and by moving to another vendor, we're going to save 5 points, and I'm going to hit my my cost reduction goals. So our branch could be doing a phenomenal job of servicing that client at their branch here in Kingston or Ottawa or whatever, and we lose them. And I haven't gone through it, but I've sat on the sidelines and watched it, and it's rough. You know what I mean? You're a lot of times the customer's sad to depart, because they're like, hey, you guys did a good job. This is really out of my hands. There's nothing we can do. Then you have, a route with a big hole in it, and somebody that's serviced that account for 5 years or maybe even longer being like, what did I do wrong? And it's like, you didn't do anything wrong. It's, you showed up every week and you did exactly what you were supposed to do, but this is big business, right? And because of that, not only is there a big hole in your route, but you don't make President's Club. just to rub it in a bit, like it's tough. That'd be a tough thing to handle. Yeah. I think, as a competitive person, I think, someone who's really goal oriented, there's nothing you can do about it. It's
like to me, when I was first made aware that was the case, that if you lose a customer, you don't go to President's Club as an RSR. I've spoken for the past 2 years about maybe changing that up a bit, right? Because I mean, I feel like sales reps, and you can speak to this because you've been to President's Club in 2018, right? Like
2018 and virtually this year. I don't know how that works.
So there you go, right? But how, when you're there, again, last time I did a podcast with a rep from UniFirst was with Allison Abbott, and she kind of gave me some insight into this. But how motivating is it to you to go to President's Club, to rub elbows with our CEO and our executive team, to go to this incredible Ritz-Carlton, either Aruba or Cabo, and then to come back, you get a diamond ring on your finger that says President's Club, which basically means you're a badass at sales, right? I mean, how motivating is that? It makes you want to go back, right? It makes you want to try even harder, right?
I'll tell you, like, it's we, you know what, in a sense, and I was thinking about this today, I saw a post on LinkedIn. I was looking for a contact, and it was a post just basically about tenure as a sales rep and what it can do. And he basically referenced, like, after 2 to 3 years, if you're really good and you stick with it and you continually improve, you'll make club, which I think he referenced. Most sales organizations have a President's Club of some sort.
Right.
But then he was referring to, and I think it's the Kruger-Dunning effect, where you start to overestimate your skill. And I think it's a real thing. I definitely do. So it really pumps you up going to President's Club. Like, you come back, you feel great. It's a trip of a lifetime. You make all kinds of great friends. The venue is phenomenal. And you're part of this weird little elite club in an industry that most people don't know about. Right. So it's like, and you get this little crazy Dakota ring that, that has this wild significance to me anyway. Oh, yeah. So, when you come back, you're totally pumped up. I couldn't help but talk to all the reps that I was with, like, what would you do in this instance? Or it's just natural, right? Yeah. So you have all this new bag of tricks and tactics. So will that work in my marketplace? You want to see, you get a little bit of secondhand wisdom in that sense. But you're definitely pumped up, and you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss.
Right.
It's a sense of personal pride, and there's also, for me anyway, and I think it's a competitive sales guy thing, or sales girl thing, saleswoman thing. You don't want to miss that mark and have somebody, that you did better than the year before outdo you, or somebody who's only been here a year, like totally blow you out of the water numbers wise. Oh, like that hurts.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
I had it happen, and it's easy to do. It's really easy to do. You think that, at least for me, I think you can overestimate. You get this amnesia. You forget how hard it was. Like how many times throughout that year leading into your President's Club run where it's like it's done, it's over, and you find some kind of motivation, and you keep going and piling more into your funnel, trying to make something work. You hit it, and then you come back. Oh, this time it'll be easy. It's never easy.
Yeah.
It's always a grind. It's always a war. And you gotta you have to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't let it. You can't absorb too much of it. Almost in a sense, you got to stay cognizant that this is fleeting. It's temporary. You don't automatically make it next year.
Right.
So it really motivates you. You got to be very emotionally intelligent about the way you process it.
Right.
Some people only go once. Some people go like every year, which I think is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really speaks volumes to people like Joey Hall or Bill Wise in the company who have been multiple
Guy St.
times.
Pierre here in Montreal.
Yeah.
He's
Exactly.
been.
Yep.
He's I can't even over 10. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Joey said something to me one time. I actually printed it off. Like I sent him a text. I was like, it's gonna sound really weird, but I've never seen a President's Club ring with multiple diamonds in one. Can you send me a picture of yours? And he was like, oh yeah, sure. So he sends me this P Club ring picture that's his ring, right? But the quote that
Yeah.
he had underneath was it was a little bit long, so I can't quote the entire thing. But the thing that stuck out the most, and I actually printed it off and I put it on my wall in front of my phone for phone block days, right? But it says, it's the hardest thing I do all year. And I was like, that's so valuable to know as a rep, because just because you go once, it doesn't guarantee you a spot next time, right? Or
like
even like in my case, like I got close one year and was thinking, okay, next year's my year, and I did way worse. so it really humbles you, right? But my point in talking about the RSR's P Club is because when you talk to sales reps about President's Club, you bring it up, everybody gets excited. They go, oh man, I'm really going to try for it this year. I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to come early. I'm going to sell this big deal and this. I'm going to do this many seatings. But if you go to an RSR and you go, hey, so can you try for P Club? Most of the time they go, at least in my experience, they've gone, eh. And it's like, whoa, hold up. Like there shouldn't be that big of a difference between us. Like you should be just as excited. But to them, it's almost like they win the lottery, right? Because once again, the whole national sale. Anyways, make a long story short, I'm a huge proponent of change in that sense. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, which all 5 of you, thank you, then you have some influence in changing that for the RSRs. Change it, but then let them know this because of me. Okay.
Yeah, you can take all the credit, man. It's completely
there we
your
go.
idea.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Me and Jason will take the credit. Okay. And all we ask is for a free trip.
If it totally blows up in our face, then it was all you.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'll stop doing my podcast if it blows up, if everybody gets mad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So tell me more about, so how did you get started in sales? I mean, have you always been in sales? Is this your first sales gig or like outside sales?
No.
How'd that happen?
So a very organic genesis. So while I was in school, bartended, served, and they just used to run all these. It started out basically because every once in a while they'd run all these features. So your job was basically, if someone asked you, to describe it to people and make it sound good. So, you get to taste it, try it. And if it was really good and you want people to get it, your job was to kind of convey very briefly and succinctly, sometimes to a large audience of like 10 to 20 people, what this was.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated it at first. Like I loathed it. I was so like I would sit and stammer with like this piece of paper, like trying to jam out like what this thing was. And then it kind of slowly but surely began to kind of make sense. And then I enjoyed it. And then, it made people happy. Oh, thanks for recommending that. That was amazing, So that was kind of the seed of it. And then from there, they started running contests. They started winning most or all of those. Then they had like a giant company one. It was like over 8 chains or something like that. I won that. And then my brother was working at a software company. I was working for them. And then I jumped from there to another company selling summits. They closed. And then I wound up at UniFirst after basically doing my own thing in the world of aerating and lawns. That was my summer gig for a bit before basically taking this on full time. So it's been 5 years, lots of different styles of sales, but that's kind of the evolution of it for me.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because so it wasn't like you started in outside sales or even that you were looking for, I mean, have you always wanted to be in sales, or was it something that just kind of fell into your life and you just kept doing?
No, honestly, my aspirations were completely opposite. It
Mm-hmm.
was not, it wasn't something that I thought about at all. And then I started enjoying it. And I think, getting good at something is always enjoyable too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, if you really try in those environments, nobody really cares. So if you're the only one who really, puts effort into it because you like it, well, hey, trying to outsell a bunch of people who aren't really trying to sell something isn't that hard, and
yeah,
it kind of gave me a bit of a shot in the arm. And then, I was just really lucky, that I knew people who were like, you're really good at this. One of my good friends that I worked with, she hooked me up for an interview at World Trade Group, which was a summit company.
mm-hmm.
And it all kind of evolved from there, just trying to figure it out. And once you really get into the big leagues or the deep end of it and realize this is not as easy as you think, this is really tough. And trying to like pick up the phone, and I was like cold calling CEOs and presidents, in the mining industry. This was after kind of the commodities crash after 2008. It was tough. It was really tough.
I can't even imagine.
It was ridiculous, because I mean, I was trying to convince basically suppliers to the mining industry to spend like tens of thousands of dollars to take meetings to develop more business. But a lot of these guys are totally either flat broke or on the cusp of it, or just like cutting like crazy. So trying to develop a really good value proposition, overcome objectives, and then also, or objections, sorry, but also having enough kind of authority to you're talking to a CEO or president of a large company that supplies to the mining industry. You know what I mean? Like, these guys, I just envision them like, they just got out of a giant fist fight, and then like they're on the phone with me, like, yeah, what do you want? Like, you're a stuttering, stammering mess. But I got a couple of deals done early on, and it kind of got the ball rolling in the right direction. So it's a learning process. At the end of the day, it's a learning process, and finding a good model, finding experts to model and peers to model that are successful in the roles that you're in. That was always my blessing, especially here. I've had really good role models, in terms of my sales managers. Jay also is everybody in my branch is named Jay. So like, there's 3 of us, which is ridiculous. It's kind of nice. Like, somebody's like, we talked to some Jay guy. We're kind of like,
That's so funny because I feel like everybody up here in Idaho is named Chris. Like our RSR is Chris, our office administrator is Chris, my sales manager is Chris. Like, everybody's Chris. And I'm like, did nobody have any other names to pick from to name their kids? Like, everybody's just like, we love Chris. Everybody just likes it. Okay, cool. Everybody's Chris. Everybody's
Jason,
Chris.
I think, was just a really popular name. I don't know how that worked out,
Yeah.
but I've been really fortunate. Like
Yeah.
um, I was able to. I mean, I don't know if I would have been able to make President's Club without a lot of the advice, input, like uh, Guy in Montreal. I mean, like I'd call him all the time, like trying to figure out what to do. He's like, "Yeah, call me anytime." He was so generous with
Yeah.
um, this wealth of knowledge that he had and how he handled things and how he sold and ran his territory. And he didn't need to do that. Like, I mean,
No.
he didn't owe me anything, like nothing at all. So I was very, very, very lucky and very grateful to this day that, I had somebody that had done it not just once, didn't get lucky once, but like, Hall of Famer that would take my phone call,
Yeah.
and, you know, and somehow believed in me. I always felt like he was like, I get off the phone, like, yeah, I can do this. Like, oh, I believe in you. Absolutely. You can do this. You just gotta do this. You're close, you got this. And
Yeah.
I would leave inspired and pumped up and, you get back to it. And I think, you're talking with helping. It's one of the biggest things. I mean, like, we're all in this together. I mean, I don't think anybody has a monopoly on how to sell.
No.
Like it's not all that big of a secret, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's many forms of success, and I think the more we help each other, the better it is. And it feels good. You gotta share all your knowledge. Most of the stuff I know, I've learned from other people.
Yeah.
So what's
Yeah.
the point in hoarding it?
Right.
I always share it with my team. And vice versa. We always keep a big open dialogue on what we're doing, because industries that are hot, tactics that are working, things that aren't working, and luckily we had 3 guys make President's Club last year. And I think a big part of that was just having a really good open dialogue about where to navigate, especially, we're trying to sell in the middle of a pandemic here. And, everything counted. And we really kind of banded together, and we kept a very narrow focus on what we were going to work on, what we weren't going to work on, how we were going to do it. And it worked. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I wasn't across the line yet for my P Club goal or President's Club goal. My brother, who's on my sales team, or the sales team for our same thing, and same thing with Kevin, our other rep. So we had to grind it out through that and somehow figure out a way to navigate very, very tricky waters. Like, it was tough.
Yeah.
Is the
I think what you're saying too, I think is extremely valuable for people to hear, because I've said this. I mean, ever since I was about 15, I remember going to my dad and I asked him, because at the time I was training in martial arts. I wanted to be a state champion and then a world champion and national champ, whatever.
Sure.
And I asked my dad, I said, so what do I have to do to get as good as somebody like Christopher Martin? So, by the way, shout out to Christopher Martin. If you're listening to this, you're coming on the podcast next, my friend. Don't run from me. I will have you on. But Christopher Martin is like this 15, 16-time world champion in Taekwondo who I would see at tournaments.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I was so intimidated to go ask him, how do you get this good? Like, how do you do this? Right. But like you're saying, he was very like, oh yeah, well, let me see your side kick. Let me see your round kick. Let me watch you spar a couple times. I'll give you some pointers. And it was weird because I wouldn't even know that he was watching me. He would just come out afterwards and go, okay, cool. You won that match. It was very good. I mean, you used a lot of really good fakes and a lot of good feints, and your spin hook kick's a little bit slow. I might tweak that a little bit. But so the point is, what you're saying is, find someone who has already done what you want to do and go ask that person what they did. It's no secret, right? There's more than one way to achieve the goal. Like, one of the things I learned from talking with Julia Decker on one of my previous podcasts, who, by the way, still holds the title for most of you podcast episode ever. So congrats, Julia. Your trophy's coming in the mail. But she said one of the biggest excuses that reps give for not being able to accomplish what other reps have is because they go, well, it's different in insert territory here, right?
It is though. It is different. You just got to
Yeah,
deal with it.
exactly. Right. You got to change. You have to adapt. Like I probably can't
Yeah.
sell the same way that somebody in Texas who maybe specializes in like FR would sell in Idaho because there's no FR up here really at all.
You
So
so you went to for people outside of this very unique industrial uniform industry that we're in. Our company does AVS, so advanced value selling.
mm-hmm.
So, if you're lucky enough, you get a tap, and it's like the Top Gun flight school of, you know, of, of uniform selling, And I
Oh,
remember
dude,
my
sales training is gonna love that you said that.
it is, like I remember you get to sit in this big boardroom and, you go around and it's like literally all these people that look completely different ages, different backgrounds, men, women, old, young, different backgrounds, nationalities. They all have this different way of selling.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn all these wild tactics. I remember doing call blocks with some of these guys and listening, like, they've got they'd have this big phone in the center of the table, and they'd have it on speaker. You're like, all right, you're next. And, somebody from New Jersey would be calling like a towing company, and the way they'd be going back and forth, like, yeah, Bob's towing, yeah, let's hear this, and then, the way they overcome objectives, they're like giving each other like, I don't know. We can't swear on here. They're giving it to you. Like they're giving it to each other back and forth pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
what, you don't want to meet with me? Oh, of course you want to meet with me. What do you something matter with you? Like, yeah, you take this meeting. Like Wednesday? All right. Guys like, all right. Have a good day. Like, why did that, man? Like, that doesn't work. And then, you'd have people from the southern states calling, and they like the warmest conversations ever. Like, I'm coming down there. I'm gonna win y'all's business. Like, Thursday at 3, and I'll bring you some cookies. They're like, okay, that works. That like everybody has this super unique way of dealing with people, providing value, and getting basically the right fit or our product into their hands. It was totally enlightening. Like, because you're stuck in this little pod. You think, okay, well, only this will work, and then you watch this wild magic around you of these different people doing all these extremely unique things, setting appointments, some people were closing deals even while they were away.
Right.
I was like, what did you just sell? Oh, I just sold a giant oil field out in wherever. Oh, wow. How did that happen? They described the sales process. It's like, what? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Like, really? Like, sure. That's cool.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You learn all of this awesome stuff from people. And I mean, I came away such a better rep from really gracious people that just gave me as much as they knew. And it's awesome. I'd go again. I obviously we can't fly there. I don't know how they do it, maybe digitally or something.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that because I was talking to Heavenly, who's one of our sales trainers. So shout out to Heavenly. But we were talking over LinkedIn, and she was saying that one of the things that they're noticing a lot more is that more can be done with the video conferencing systems, with Zoom, with Microsoft Teams than they ever thought they could, just because they've been pushed into that situation. Right. But, I mean, all the things that you're saying are absolutely true. I mean, I've been to AVS twice. I went to ISM, which is Introduction to Sales Management, back when I was a sales manager for a very brief time in the company.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a long story. We'll talk after this is stopped recording. But sure. That was an interesting experience because even at that level, when you're going through sales management training, you find people who manage people so differently, and everybody across the company is very different. Like my sales manager back in Sacramento, love him, Troy Castillo. He was a major account rep with Aramark before he came on.
Okay.
And had a lot of stuff to teach us about how to set appointments, be non-threatening. I mean, he was just fantastic. Love that guy.
Sure.
And then I come over to technically I'm part of Salt Lake City's branch, but the Twig in Pocatello. And now I got Chris Baker, who's completely different than Troy. I mean, just a different dynamic. And then even my GMs, like the legendary Jacob Spursum in Stockton, very, very hands-on, very much involved with every single rep. Like he knew everybody's numbers to the T. And then I
Okay.
have Ross Clark, who's our GM out here, who I barely speak to. Right. So
Right.
each branch, each plant is very different, but they all have their own levels of success. And I think based on the market, to your point, yes, it is different, right? But as far as the
Sure.
way that you sell, when you know you can adapt, you can change, and then once you master your own adaptation of the universe sales process, it's like the sky's the limit, right? Because you could sell to anybody at that point. So
You, I think when things began to click for me, to give myself a tiny bit of credit, I took a lot from everybody else, but I did do a few things myself.
right.
Um, I had to take a really hard look at my territory and see what's possible here. I've done a lot of major industry. I'm in a small territory.
Mm-hmm.
Not, you know, we don't manufacture a ton here, so, and a lot of it was very much entrenched with other vendors that you could spend a lot of time trying to earn their business and still not succeed.
Right.
So I had to rapidly come up with a new game plan about, all right, what can I move here? What does this marketplace still need that I can provide, and find a niche that I can be best at? And every year it evolves, right? It's having a bit of foresight, doing a lot of testing, trying to always looking for new industries or a new niche that our products and services meet. That was one of the big things, because every marketplace is different. And if you try and take basically the full on model from, say, like New York or Toronto or wherever, any one of the Texas branches, you're not going to have the same. I don't have any 200-man FR accounts that I can go knock on their door.
Right.
I'd be lucky if I can find a 10-man account that wears FR. Like
right.
That's like so I had to get really strategic, and I think you do. I really think you need to play the hand you're dealt. Wherever territory you're in, obviously, we're set up for business there for a reason, and you got to get savvy. You got to really kind of take a look at what's around, what's not in your database. Everybody be like, oh, my database, my database only has this, my database doesn't have that. I don't have any. It's like, okay, great. I started like basically going off my database. I'd go out and be like, okay, so here's my big accounts. What's not in there though? What am I missing?
Right.
Some of the biggest accounts I brought in were those accounts. We're not trusting the previous notes that were in there. My first Business Club run, in our database, we have like an estimated close value. How much, how much somebody at some point thought they would take in our products or services. It said $35 a week. So, I mean, I was like, all right, well, don't spend too much time on it, but I could see that they're building new building, and tried to like set an appointment, got blown out. The guy slammed a door in my face. Like, he's like, we would never talk to you, and no need for what you're providing. We're totally set up, whatever. So
what you're saying is not everybody in Canada is super nice, despite the myth.
No,
okay.
Horribly. That's a big misconception.
Gotcha.
I've been told I'm nice most of the time, but I sat down, did some homework, called this person, and it turns out they've got like, I think 9 sites, and it was like $1,000 a week instead of 35.
Mm-hmm.
I called her, set an appointment, worked on it for a couple of years, but it was totally non-traditional. It was the other side of the column that we don't really think about. We have facility services, and then we have uniforms. It's all facility services, which I never even thought to sell. I didn't even know an account could be that big with that. It's like, I started doing math on this. I'm like, okay, well, if you're spending this much right now over this many sites, like, okay, all right. But I must have driven by the place 10 times before I even
Mhm.
bothered pulling off to talk to them. It's developing this unique eye for opportunities that aren't really common, that most people don't talk about, whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, that's something I'm glad you said too, because I remember because my first outside sales gig was I was with Aflac, right, for about maybe 6 months, and
Okay.
then I came on to
Insurance?
yeah, insurance, and
Yeah. I
then I
remember the
came on to Unifor.
commercials.
Sorry.
Remember the commercials? The duck, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. That was actually a really
Yeah.
good company to work for. The problem is it was right around when Obamacare came out. So the biggest objection I got was, so is this going to fulfill
Okay.
my requirements for healthcare? And I was like, nope. And they go, yeah, see ya, we're out. So it was really tough
Okay.
to overcome that. But one of the things that I noticed, to your point, is nobody has a crystal ball, right? And everybody talks about, well, it's quality over quantity. There's a reason that the old model of prospecting with Universe, which we're kind of slowly getting back into now, was 80 to 100 activities every single week, right? Because you had to become a prospecting machine, like Will McDonald said, right? And I learned that very early on because I would have maybe 7 accounts pending. And I would go, okay, these 4 are probably not going to sign. There's no chance, right? And the other 3 are probably going to sign. Well, lo and behold, a couple weeks ago by, these 3 fell off the map completely, and 4 of these guys signed. And I'm like, what? What? Like, I never would have thought that these guys
You
would
need
be
one
interested.
week.
Right.
You need 1 week to send this through purchasing and getting you a PO. Don't worry, we'll have this signed in no time. They
Right.
vanish.
Yeah.
6 months, a
Exactly.
year. Sorry, did someone die? Did your plant blow up? What happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
These are the deals that I remember. Like one, it was like a year. What happened? Oh yeah, we totally didn't someone tell you? We decided not to go with it. Well, you know I gathered that by the fact that I could never get a hold of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do? It's amazing what happens to like your decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like things that pen that you think, oh yeah, that's going to move, this is going to move, and then you never really know what's going to happen until you're dealing with
Yeah.
like an ultimate decision maker. You've got good
Mm-hmm.
buy-in, good rapport. You got to get a lot of those tumblers for that vault door in
Yeah.
line before you can
Yeah.
get that
Exactly.
done.
Exactly. But like, I think in my case too, it's funny because I think I was a terrible judge of foreshadowing and what's the word?
Me too.
Like what's the word we always use?
Gauge of
Uh,
gauge of opportunity type of thing.
yeah, like I would look at accounts and go, "That there's no way they'd be interested. I'm not even gonna walk in, right?" But I kid you not, I walked into one of the city offices in California, which to this
Okay.
day is still the biggest FS account I've ever sold. Right? That's the other thing that I think reps miss the boat on sometimes because like we're talking about an account that maybe is like $35 a week, with uniforms or whatever, but there's a way you can make a quote unquote C account turn into a B account simply by adding toilet paper, paper towels, soap, sanitizer, right? I call it the Universe bundle package, right? Because like I'll bundle it up and I'll go, cool, so it's this much per week, but every month or so, you're probably going to see a charge that will pop up for your paper and soap and sanitizer as long as you need it. And most of the time, people go, yeah, okay. But, anyways, jumping back into the city, one of the things I realized is that uh, people are more willing to pay bigger numbers for things like toilet paper, paper towels, sanitizer, soap than they would ever consider paying for uniforms or for mats or for towels. So it's like the craziest thing ever because I probably worked this guy for at least a year. I go back and forth. I did a cost analysis for him. I think he was with I won't mention the name, but one of my competition at the time. And it was the day of my
One,
quarterly
two, three
review.
uniforms.
Yeah, exactly. But this was all mats, mops, towels, paper, soap, sanitizer, whatever.
Yeah.
But I ended up going back the day of my quarterly review with my GM, thinking this is probably going to be one of those meetings where he's like, we're still thinking about it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I almost didn't go to it, right? Because I was like, I actually had to fight a little bit with my GM to leave that day because I'm not supposed to leave on the review day, right? So he tells me, he goes, look, if the guy signs, you can go. If he doesn't sign, or if you don't think he's going to sign, then you can't go. And I was like, I think he's going to sign. So I lied to him.
I think you'll
Right?
sign.
Yeah, right. So I end up walking in, I sit down. The first thing this guy says to me is he turns around his chair, he's typing away, he turns around and goes, okay, cool. So where's paperwork? Let's get this thing rolled out. And I was like, what? So like it was like one of the it's like one of those accounts I'm talking about, right? Where it's massive. I think they pay something like $2,000 a week or whatever in FS. And I mean,
Yeah.
but the crazy thing is, if you would have asked me if that thing was going to sign that day, that would have been like, no. So my point is, to reps that are listening to this that might be new, go into every single appointment not having any expectations, not judging a book by its cover, because this guy may have 3 guys in this one shop, but guess what? His wife might own another store that has like 17 people. So I mean, you could definitely get that business too. It's
It's
crazy, man.
happened to me 2 or 3 times. And so the account that I was talking about, that was like one of the largest accounts the largest account that I brought on at that time. And then also my first big one, my first big account that kind of got the ball rolling for a President's Club run. This thing went black. They kept pushing the close. Like, it was like, this is dead. This is
Yeah.
done. Like, me and this person, we got along great. She loved me. I really got along with her. Everything was going great. I put together a phenomenal proposal, references all checked out, but there wasn't enough to put her over the edge. They weren't unhappy enough with their current vendor, 123 Uniforms, to leave and to come on with us. So I just wanted. You get to a point in sales, and if something's been going on long enough, you just want it to scratch it off so you can move on.
Right.
Because it leaves the hope. You want to kill that hope, right?
Yeah.
Or get the yes. But I was literally at 10%. I was like, it's 10% yes, 90% no. So I was like, all right, just call her, get it over with. You have nothing to lose right now. Update your database, because we have to basically tell ourselves in the future or the future rep when the contract's due.
Mm-hmm.
Call her up. And I'm like, hey, yeah, no, I'm just following up, seeing how everything's going. Just tell me no so I can move on. Just wondering where we're at with this. She's like, well, yeah, the only thing left to do is if you just want to come down here, and I guess we'll just get the paperwork done. And I'm like, and it didn't even register. I'm like, yeah, no, I really appreciate, the opportunity, and like this, I blew off whatever meeting I had at that time slot. We set a time. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to you later. we'll reset another time. Race down there the next day, got it done. But you never know. You never know. Never know. It's so hard. And same thing at a large dental group sign on.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my database, a very tiny $35 opportunity. Sat down, started talking to like operations manager and everything else, and tell me about your group. Okay, well, we have there's 14 sites in this group. Oh, really? Okay, tell me more, right? And then it led into all this wild stuff. Like, I honestly was like, I was not even worried about it. Like, I was like, if I can't get out there, it was like out kind of like in a territory, I had nothing, a quick piece of a territory, I had nothing else going on at. I was like, it's one mat stop. Like, if we can't make this work, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
I wound up getting half of the group to start for facility services. Then they're like, yeah, we want these barrier gown things. And I was like, okay, good. So that gave me a super fast track into like now.
Yeah.
So that was last summer. I basically immersed myself in everything I could learn about all their IPAC guidelines. They need them. The colleges that their IPAC guidelines, the difference between them, the provincial, the Canadian guidelines for where all this was fitting in. And I was like, this is going to be huge. Like, this was all from just showing up to a $35 mat meeting. So fast forward to we service 90%. There's 2 sites that opted out. They all took a metric ton of barrier gowns from us on a weekly weekly program, and facility services. I
Yeah.
mean, from something when you're looking at my database, it was like, it's probably 1,500, 2,000 a week, like between everything all put together, like big, for
Yeah.
us, it's a quarter, maybe quarter and a bit worth of quota.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
never know. You
No.
gotta.
Again, then the thing too with utilizing a database is Ryan West, who was my previous branch manager. He became a GM in Wisconsin. He's now with Choice Hotels.
Okay.
But he told me something one time about the database because I was complaining about how inaccurate it was or whatever, and I was just like, man, why can't they just scrub the entire database from the very beginning and just let you research it yourself? And he's like, well, what's the difference between it being scrubbed and between it having information that you didn't put in there? And I was like, oh, that's a good point. And he goes, don't think of your database as a CRM. Try to think of it as like an ATM. It's only going to give you what you put into it. So if you put the CXD in and you know it's the CXD, you know it's correct, you saw a copy of the agreement and everything else, you know that's when the competitor's contract comes up. That's the time to go back and actually strike at that account, right? If you know there's issues, you put it in there, you know it's going to be on your hot list. It might even go to your pending. Who knows? But you can't judge based on what the database is. Like I talked with a one of our newer reps this past week about phone blocking because she was having some issues with making appointments. And she goes, how do you make 3, 4 appointments, 5 appointments every phone block? And I said, well, here's the thing. When you make your own lists, right? In other words, like Mondays and Thursdays for us anyway is phone block day, right? So from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Monday, and then from 8 o'clock to 12 on Thursdays, we're all phone blocking, right? Typically what I do is I take all the business cards I get from Friday and I make that my first 2 hours on Monday. I know those are going to be much warmer calls to make appointments with, right? And then same thing on Thursday. I'll take Tuesday and Wednesday's cards on
Just
Thursday.
stack that in.
Yep, exactly.
20 cards. And you also, I don't know, like I like cards too because you can start to feel like loses its like sales magic or something. If you've had it too long, it's like I need if you're shot with doing like what Will McDonald calls the 20 card shuffle, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
You got to collect more. You got to get some more firewood. And you got to burn through it, right? Boil that down, see what's there, set your appointments. And also, when you're out doing in-person cold calls, you get all kinds of information, right? Like, I always leave with something. Like, okay, before you throw me out, do you have a card for X and Y Z person just so I can remember I was here? Oh, yeah, get out of here. Thank you. Not how it happens. They don't flick it to me like a card toss. I don't magically catch it.
Here you go. You're
imagination, like, how it works.
In your pocket. Yeah. Like over your shoulder. You're not even looking at him. You're like, shh, I'll be back.
Yeah. You have their contact info. Sometimes you have their mobile. Just being able to connect with people is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And if you're going off of old notes, a lot of times people like databases were bought, you know what I mean, in bulk and never updated. I've called accounts that I never visited in person in my first year. I asked for 3 contacts that were deceased. Like, you need to go out and make it your own. Like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. Okay, is so and so there instead? No, they are also deceased. Oh, okay. Like, I was like,
yeah, that's embarrassing. Have you ever done this where you have you ever done this where you call an account in your database that somebody didn't take out, you set an appointment, they seem super eager to meet with you, super eager to talk to you about service, whatever, they want to do the cost analysis, whatever, you get there, you open the door, you step in the mat, and you see a UniFirst mat at your feet, and you're like, oh my God, this is a UniFirst customer. I'm here talking to the DM, and he wants a cost analysis because I just told him there's been some negative service trends and price increases, whatever. And he wants me to like sit. Yeah, done that. Been there.
I've never done that. I've cold called places, or I've called people and they thought that I worked for the vendor that they are with. oh,
Yep.
you're not from 123 Uniforms?
Yep. Done
Like,
that too.
no, no. I said it 5 times that I don't work for them. I was
Yeah.
going to come look at your program, try and find ways to increase your service, decrease overhead, go through your program with you.
Hmm.
Remember that? And then I sent you an email with my extension that says I'm from the company,
Yep.
and then sent you another email with a bunch of marketing material. Like, how did you not put that together? Or sometimes just in
Yeah.
person. Here's my card. It says it right on there what company I work for. Are you telling me you don't work for 123 Uniforms? No, I don't. Why do you think that?
Yep.
Well, you said I clearly you fibbed to me. I'm like, I
Right.
think no, I think you weren't listening.
Yeah, that's that's definitely something I've done that too, and I think a large part of that is because people get so caught up in talking about the competitor that they're going to go up against that they immediately
Sure.
think that they're with the incumbent, right? So they end up going in. Yeah, there's been some crazy appointments I've been on where like obviously the first scenario happened where they were already with UniFirst, they wanted to see a cost analysis, they wanted to go through that, and I just use it as like an opportunity to talk about our paper and soap products because I didn't already have it, and it ended up working out great because I was able to sell toilet paper and paper towels and some shop towels to this customer, and they were super happy I came by, and it just increased the route, right? That was when I learned that reps could actually sell ABIS and actually get paid for it. ABIS, by the way, is an acronym for like additional business, right? But now we have this
Yeah,
amazing
you're
thing.
doing some upsell.
Yeah, like I don't know if Canada has this, but um, we have what's known as a CDR or like a customer development rep, where that's all they
Home
do,
market.
and
Yeah, like
he's killing it. Like it's incredible.
well, there's a lot of products right now that people want,
Yeah.
like masks,
Mhm.
for instance, hand sanitizer, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a giant new need with this pandemic going on for almost our entire portfolio, right, of what we offer.
Hmm.
Sanitizing chemicals, gloves, hygienically laundered uniforms, scrubs, like you name it, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I could almost use everything in this catalog. Like, you know what I mean? So if you took like 3 or 4 line items from us, there's no reason why, as long as you're already on good terms,
Hmm.
you can't, increase that kind of portfolio of business that they're already doing with you. So
Yeah.
it it helps, and it is great because you can reference them, you know, and for the future. If they have a good experience and things are going well, it's great, especially if they have like a couple. Sometimes they'll have 2 vendors of us
Right.
and somebody else. ABC unit.
Excuse me.
Um, you get to you get to reach their program. I've done that before. That's always fun.
Yeah. There's so many different avenues you can take um, with this industry too. Like, and jumping back to something that you said earlier about not many people even know about the industry. I remember being at it's just after
Everywhere.
I came back to UniFirst after having left for about 6 months or so. I remember sitting down with my GM, my branch manager, my sales manager, and another rep that had just started, and we're all at
Right.
lunch. And the waiter comes up and he goes, man, you guys are all dressed up to the nines. You're all wearing suits. I mean, you guys look like you're super rich. Like, what kind of business you in? And my GM just goes, laundry. And he goes, what? I was like, I mean, it's true. We're basically in the laundry business. But like, I remember when I first started at UniFirst and I came home, I told my wife, I was like, I've never heard of this industry. I don't know how big it is. If I had a shop, I don't know if I would use it. I mean, that was literally what I said,
And
but there's this huge need for it.
everywhere,
Yeah, it's everybody uses it.
everywhere, everywhere. Every
Yep.
major market in North America has one to sometimes 20 vendors that do something similar to what our company does.
Yep.
And the only reason that I actually found out about it was because my parents had looked into something like that for their business, and they explained it to me, and I was like, what? Like, I had no idea what they were talking about. So
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, they're hiring for the area. It was for another company. I was like, oh, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I'm like, so what did they do? And to this day, like the funniest thing ever. I love my boss dearly. Like Jay's the best boss ever. Like I'm so lucky to have such a great mentor, coach, boss. And our first phone call though was hilarious. So I'm applying to all these jobs. I'm trying to get a sales gig, you know, and I get this call from him, and he's explaining. So it was blind, right? It said outside sales rep, this much. You get to, these are the responsibilities. I'm like, okay, I could probably do that. But he didn't say what industry it was for. So he calls me and he's like, yeah, it's for industrial laundry. I'm like, industrial laundry? My mind went to like the Shawshank Redemption. I'm thinking like am
Yeah.
I, they're in the laundry doing. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna sell that. He's like, yeah, like So anyway, he explained more about it, and I was like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. So he's like, yeah, I'd like to have you in for an interview, and we wind up like basically finishing the phone call, and I'm talking to my brother who was in sales and marketing in college, and he had to do this basically report, like find 50 companies that you want to sell for and rate them and do this report on them. And I said, well, make it easy. Go on to Sales Power. They rank the top 50 in North America every year. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I sent him the link and whatever. So he starts using that, and a week later, going back and forth. He goes, oh, I have a job hunt doing. I'm like, there's this laundry company that wants me to come in and talk to him. And he goes, and my God bless my brother, right? Always open-minded and optimistic. Oh, well, that sounds pretty good. Like, what's that about? And I'm like, oh, it's UniFirst. And he's like, UniFirst, I've heard that name. He goes, I think they're a good company. I was like, okay. So I goes, I think it's on that list that you sent me. So in that year, they were number 7 or 8 in North America to sell for.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So started doing all this research and recon and everything else. I was like, oh, I had no idea at all. Like all the gears in my mind started like clicking together, and I was like, I gotta call this guy back. So called him back. It was like, yeah, oh, we gotta sit down at this time and whatever. And then of course, in that like couple of days or whatever it was, while we were trying to figure out an interview day, somebody else had come in and applied who was like as equally qualified to me. So it turned into this like giant dogfight for the job. And I basically had to like convince them to, like, it was my second interview. I had to go out and do a field test or like a field evaluation.
I did that too. They don't do those anymore, unfortunately. That was awesome.
They should.
I agree.
I wound up actually setting up quite a few people that I talked to, which is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, and I just remember thinking like, how can all these wild industries take the same product or service from one company? Like I went to a food production site. I went to one place that makes milk, one place that makes chocolate, a tire changer, an oil changer,
right?
Also a butcher shop. Like I just went to all these different places, and I was like, sorry, so you all use this? Like, yeah. Went to a giant restaurant. Yeah, we use it. Yeah, we have a big national program. Like, what? Like, yeah, oh yeah, it's this company. And like, these guys are publicly traded. Like, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah,
it's like
that's the same thing I thought too. I remember going in for my first interview, or actually having a first appointment on the phone, because it was weird because I was still working for Aflac at the time. And I remember I was in the field out prospecting, just feeling super down about myself because I couldn't sell anything. And my wife was at home literally putting my resume and application on every single job she could find, because she's just awesome like that, right? But I get this phone call from a Jason Guyer. He calls me up. He's like, hey man, I'm the sales manager for UniFirst Sacramento. I want to talk to you real quick, kind of do like a phone interview. Do you have maybe 10 minutes? I'm like, sure. So I'm kind of like half listening to him. He mentions laundry. I'm like, I don't want to sell laundry. But then I go into the office, and I swear to you, this is a true story. I'll have Jason on the podcast to verify this really happened. But I walk in, and for some reason I had this weird inclination that he was going to ask me to sell him a pen, like straight Wolf of Wall Street kind of interview question, right?
It
So,
happened once.
so like I look around my
Fun.
house, I find the nicest possible pen I could find. I find it
Okay.
and I put it in my pocket and I go, just in case. I go in, I sit down with him. The very end of the interview, I swear he does this. He goes, all right, last question for you. And he pulls out a pen. He goes, sell me this pen. And I immediately went, oh, you want that pen? Why do you like that pen? Well, I mean, I like it because it has this and this one. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple options because I like to give my customers options. I give them a good and a best option. What you really want is the best pen. And I pulled it out and he was just like, that's it. This guy's the guy. So like, and like, I almost lost the opportunity because I remember interviewing with my regional sales manager at the time. That was Christian.
Okay.
Uh, and he was asking me, one of the questions was, keep in mind, like I'd never really made a lot of money. I mean, the best paying job I had up to that point was like $13 an hour or something like that. And
Okay.
just grinded it out for years. Or what felt like years is my younger years. But he goes, so tell me, how much money do you need to just survive? And I went, probably like $1,500 a month. I was being totally honest with him. And he goes, okay, you realize this position is going to be like a lot more than that, right? And in my mind, I'm going, holy crap, I made it. It's going to be amazing. But on the outside, I'm trying to stay humble. So I went, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. So I go home. Jason calls me and goes, dude, what is wrong with you? And I went, what do you mean? He goes, Christian doesn't like you at all because you didn't seem excited about the opportunity. You seemed really lackadaisical. I was like, no, 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 dude, I promise I'm super excited. Please, 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 please. He goes, then get your ass back here and tell Christian how badly you want this job. And he hung up on me. So I drove all the way back. I sat down in front of Christian again, told him everything I was thinking, told him what I was thinking in my head. He goes, cool, you start Monday. And I was like, oh. So it was like super, super intense. But the crazy thing too is like, if you would have asked me when I was younger, if I wanted to be in sales, let alone in laundry sales and actually enjoy it, I would have been like, no, you're out of your mind. I'm gonna be a fighter pilot like Top Gun. So it's just weird how things happen, right? But to speak about the culture we were talking about before, where everybody wants to help each other, everybody's so into like each other's like goals and accomplishments. That's the reason that I came back to UniFirst after having left for 6 months, because I got poached by a packaging company, and then I came back here,
Okay.
and I haven't looked back since, because it's just been such a better selling environment. Sales training is not created equal among all companies, and the culture is the same way. Like, I mean, I was in a company
Right.
that literally the senior reps couldn't give two craps about the rookie reps. Like, one of them actually said to my face, they were like, I'll start talking to you when you're here after a year. And I was like, okay, fine. Meanwhile, here you send Bill Wise a LinkedIn message and he goes, here's my cell phone, bro. It's like, it's just a totally
He's
different environment.
a great guy. I talked to him for the first year or first time this year. And he's awesome. Like
Oh yeah.
super humble. Like for such a legend in what we do and like how much he's accomplished. Talk to him, he's just like, oh yeah, like he's just the best.
Yeah.
Gracious, full of knowledge, great
Yeah.
to talk to, very funny. So
Yeah. There's a
shout out
lot
to
of
him
people
if
like
he's
that too. Like I feel like he's gonna get mad at me because I feel like I talk about him almost every podcast now. He's gonna comment on my video and be like, stop talking about me, Philip. Um, but yeah, so well, Jason, thank you so much for jumping on, man. I really appreciate you being on the show. For people that want to
absolutely
connect with you, where can they
sure.
find you? Is it LinkedIn? Do you have Instagram? Like, where do you want people to try to connect with you?
LinkedIn. Yeah.
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shoot me an invite, send me a message, let me know what it's about. We'll talk.
Most definitely. Real quick shout out to LinkedIn. Just FYI, LinkedIn is not a sponsor of my podcast. In fact, I don't have any sponsors
Yeah.
as of yet. Uh, but I swear up and down by LinkedIn, if you're looking for your next career, you're looking for your next sales gig, or just next step in life, you're looking for somebody to connect with in a professional way, LinkedIn is going to be your best bet. There's always a column at the bottom right-hand side that says jobs. You can always click on that. There's a lot of amazing opportunities that find their way onto LinkedIn. There's also a lot of recruiters as well. Like I'm sure, Jason, you probably get hit up by recruiters all the time because you get that title P Club rep, right?
Yeah, I get a fair amount of them.
Yep.
Some are really some are really easy to shake. Some aren't.
Yep.
But you know what? If anybody wants to recruit me, I'm always flattered. So I try and
Absolutely.
let them down gently. Pretty
Yeah,
happy where I am, but
for sure. For sure. Well, once again, thank you everybody for listening to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer. This has been the man, the myth, the legend that is Jason Paradis, right? I say it right?
yeah,
Yes.
you got
Nailed
it.
it. All right, guys. Tune in next week, and we'll talk to you guys later on.